week, we take the stories you've been watching on television and reading about in the newspaper, and we go behind the story to tell you what it's all about. We put our spin on it. And you can accept or reject it. Like we tell you every week, it's only our opinion, and but we're going to have our say. This show will be repeated on Friday night between 8:30 and 9:30, and also it's on continuously on FlintTalkRadio.com. And if you miss it on Tuesday night, tonight, and Friday night, you can probably catch it on the FlintRadio.com. But anyway, we have a number of things we want to talk to you about tonight. You know, the crime problem in Flint is almost out of control, if not out of control. But we have some suggestions on how the city can reduce their crime problem by merely following the law. Also, we want to talk to you about what's involved in the highly controversial and proposal on next week's ballot concerning outlawing the affirmative action and hiring for government jobs, education, contracting purposes. Now, keep in mind, this only deals with government jobs. It has nothing to do with private companies and private businesses yet. But that's the amendment to the proposed amendment to the Constitution at this time only refers to government jobs. You know, we mentioned this a little last week, but, you know, what's this crazy suggestion by Williamson administration that we need additional millage to fix the city sidewalks? What's happened to the taxes we already are paying, like the property taxes, the income taxes? And, you know, there's another question, too. Why doesn't the city use some of the block grant money we're receiving from the federal government? Now, the one limitation on it that there are only certain areas in the city, but it's a large area that is covered by the block grant monies. It's usually the poor neighborhoods or the middle-income neighborhoods. But, you know, why another millage? Let's use some of that money. Don't let it go back to the federal government. If you can't figure out what to do with all of it, put some new sidewalks in. And we also tonight want to inquire into the apparent breakdown by the Michigan Department of Human Services in protecting our children, as tragically demonstrated in the death of little Rose Kelly. Now, there are 3 other children involved in that matter, and the case is before Bob Weiss, who is very, very sensitive to children issues. We've seen him in court. You know, and we haven't always agreed, but I watched him in court on these matters with children, and he's very, very sensitive. And the first thing he takes into account when dealing in family matters is the children, and I think that's a very good thing. Now, we want to talk about, here's another example of Flint Mayor Williamson's foot getting in the way of his mouth. Remember his pontificating about reorganizing the police department recently, and he was going to start by putting one-man, one-woman cops in patrol cars. And then he was going to take sergeants and lieutenants and captains out of their cushy jobs sitting around shuffling papers inside the police headquarters and put them on patrol with the other cops. Now that's his language, his terms. I don't know if they're cushy jobs or not, but that's how he termed it. Yeah, but now what I'm told by a very reliable source in the police department that this new assignment never happened because the mayor made a deal with these higher-ups that if they agreed not to vote a no-confidence vote against the police chief, Hagler, like the African American Association, Cops Association did, they wouldn't have to go out on the patrol duty. There was no vote of no confidence from the sergeants and lieutenants. So they kept their cushy jobs inside the police headquarters. A little background. Incidentally, the rumor is, and it's come from a number of good sources, again, don't hold me to it, but Richard Dix, who is now the fire chief for the Flint Police Department and a former police officer, and a good one, is being touted as the next police chief for the city of Flint. You know, I frankly don't think that would be a bad idea, because I've known Richard probably for 35 years. And he's a good friend. And I think when he was a police officer, when I was prosecutor, he was extremely able and reliable, and I'm sure he would do the same kind of a job if he were police chief. Also, we've learned another kind of rumor that Archie Bailey, from the commissioner from the Flushing area, has made arrangements with Woodrow Stanley and Renetta Speed and Pat Lockwood, if they're elected to the county commission, to support him for chairman of the board of county commissioners, replacing Dick Hamill, or Rick Hamill, who was just elected to the state house here, or is running for the state house. He should be elected. The district's about 75% Democratic. So they're going to have a new chairman of the county board, and apparently Bailey wants it, and he's made some deals with Stanley and others. You know, I'd be interested to find out what he may have had to give up to get Stanley's support. You know, Stanley is not one to be so kind as to just give it away, his support away for nothing. And I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with that, because all politicians do the same thing, but I still would be interested to see what Stanley has coming if in fact this comes about and Bailey wins his election and the other people who apparently have agreed to support him are also elected. What happens when the chairmanship position comes up for vote? Who votes for whom, and what each one of them gets for voting for the ultimate chairman. Also, here's a story. Actually, you'll only hear for the first time on this program. The U.S. Justice Department representatives came into Flint last week and began an investigation into certain questionable activities being attributed to the Williamson administration, and especially in regard to the police department. Now, apparently, certain members of the police department made a complaint against Williamson administration with the Justice Department concerning, among other things, that their civil rights were being violated. I'm told that representatives of the U.S. Justice Department met with Williamson and some of his top people, including the police chief, Hagler, and the NAACP leadership. Last week, Thursday, trying to resolve the matters that were raised by the African American police officers. Now, we just happened to, this was kept quiet because they didn't want anything out until they had a press conference, probably tomorrow or sometime this week or early next week. But here, I've got the memorandum they've written, the understanding, what's going to be disclosed to the public. I'm going to give it to you first. It's called the City of Flint, Michigan, and the Flint NAACP, the Flint Police Officers Association, and the African American Police League. And it's on the stationery of the United States Justice Department. So, obviously, they were part of this, and they were in here. But I think some of the things that they conclude and agree to here in this memorandum by all those parties I mentioned is kind of interesting. The first thing is, there's this paragraph in there, or a sentence in there, they're talking about that the parties have agreed to develop a 50% written and 50% oral test for Flint police sergeants' promotional examinations. The written test will reflect current department policy and procedures. Questions shall also be related, but not limited to, culture diversity, workplace of violence, and sexual harassment. Well, that sounds like the issue of the allegations of racial discrimination, racism in hiring and promotion that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So apparently there has been some understanding and agreement to that. Remember where the police officers, the black police officers appeared before the city council and made those allegations? Well, anyway, apparently they've addressed it now. And then it goes on to say that the city of Flint and the Flint police agreed to offer 2-man cars to work on the 3rd and 4th shifts, Monday through Sunday, during critical hours when the city's crime is most likely to occur. So the hours are going to be set, but it's going to be the 3rd and the 4th shift. Now, remember the 1-car deal? I think that's out the window. Out the window. And remember when, I think it was Joel Fife from Channel 12 did a pretty, I think a good interview with Williamson when he was asking him about his plan for 26-point plan for reorganization and what Williamson thought about the fact about the Flint Police Department's response to it, which was kind of negative. They weren't happy with it because they weren't even brought into the discussion on it. Remember the interview? Play that interview for me, will you please?
And what comes next for Hagler and the Flint Police Department is up to Flint's mayor. And Don Williamson says he has big plans. He wants to restructure the department starting this Sunday. The mayor outlined those changes for ABC 12's Joel Fike, who joins us now from police headquarters with a story you'll see only on ABC 12. So Joel, why the shakeup?
Well, Angie, Mayor Williamson says he wants more Flint police officers on the street and more 911 calls responded to, so he's making wholesale changes to the way the Flint Police Department operates. To stem Flint's rising crime rate, Williamson says he has to make changes.
When the city council turned me down, hiring the new police officers, I said, how can we attack the crime in this city? Where am I going to get the manpower?
His solution, a radical restructuring of the department that would put an extra 49 police officers on the streets.
All police cars, this is key, are to be 1-man police cars.
Would that be safe?
Talk to the sheriff across the street, they're all 1-man cars. Talk to the state police, most of their cars are all 1-man.
The city would do away with the FANG narcotics officers, require half of all sergeants, captains, and lieutenants to be put back on the streets, and eliminate police dogs.
The sheriff's department's got 2, the state police got 100. We don't need them.
Williamson wants a satellite tracking system on all police cars and a regular audit of how officers are spending their time. While some of the 26 changes mandated by the mayor may go over like a lead balloon with the union, Williamson says he doesn't care.
The union contract should be canceled now.
But are you anti-union?
No, I don't care about the union. The union's okay. But what I'm saying to you, you got a union contract over there that tells you got to do this to get promoted. You got to be Houdini to get it done.
Williamson says the restructuring will make Flint safer.
I'm adjusting the workforce so that we are coming up with another 49 police officers without costing the taxpayers any money.
If police officers don't like it?
Delphi is hiring for $12 an hour. We will put a good word in for them.
Williamson insists he doesn't need city council approval for any of the changes.
I can do this.
Today's announcement is the latest salvo in an ongoing war of words between the mayor and the police union. All 26 changes are set to go into effect this Sunday. If you'd like to see the entire list and the interview with the mayor, log on to our website at abc12.com. Live from police headquarters, Joel Fike, ABC 12 News.
Incidentally, in this proposal for reorganization the mayor had, he talked about the satellite system he wanted in the car. To show you he's really lacks information about what's going on. These satellite systems were put in the car last November. They've been in the car. And incidentally, the elimination of dogs, the dogs are back in because of this agreement too. So anyway, this is kind of an informal affirmative action agreement. In other words, it doesn't have the government's stamp of approval so that it has to be followed. It's just a memorandum of understanding, and it's kind of put together as a kind of an informal affirmative action. And like I said, the one-man crews are pretty much out. The times he wanted the one-man crews are going to be two-man crews again. And when he says the state police come into Flint in one-man cars, that's not true. Whenever they come in to patrol a certain area of the city of Flint, they were two people. So he got to get his facts straight before he starts making those kind of comments and trying to misrepresent the facts of the public and make the local police look bad. And then it goes on to say that the parties agreed to conduct monthly labor management meetings to improve communications and dialogue with the Flint Police Chief, Lieutenants, Captains, Sergeants. The FPO is the African group, the unions, Local 1600, 1799, along with Flint, to discuss mutual department labor's concerns and operations. Now, he just told Joel Fike he doesn't care what they say. Well, since they had a meeting with the U.S. Justice Department, all those things he said are now changed. They will meet. They will discuss. They will share the decision-making on this thing. They will have two-man cars. They will have the dogs available for drug investigations. And they will have consideration on who they're hiring and who they're promoting, and whether or not the decisions to make those promotions and that hiring is racist or not. Then it says the mayor, in return to these things, agrees to rescind Executive Order 06-0001. That's, I'm sure, the one-man cars. And then he says something. We mentioned this when this thing first arose here about 3 weeks ago. We suggested that when you have allegations of racism by one party and denial by another, there should be probably a third party come in to sit in and mediate the dispute to try to get it settled. Because the two parties who are arguing with each other, it may go on forever. In this memorandum, it says if the parties cannot agree on their dispute that they may be having, whether it's on race or whatever it is, a number of people in cars, the shifts and things, then dispute resolution will be sought from the outside. So all those things he said he wouldn't do, as far as I know, most of them are now going to be done as agreed to by he and his administration with all these other groups that were involved to avoid these kinds of confrontations in the future. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Incidentally, we've also learned that there's a good likelihood the Haskell Center may be reopened with some financial help from the Mott Foundation, the Flint Board of Education. Remember, the